Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with Dorati in Detroit, or the complete Decca recordings, Dorati Detroit. Dorati in Detroit sounds a little bit too much like Iphigenia in Aulis or something like that, right? But we have Dorati in Detroit here on Decca in one of these lovely boxes where if you don't hold it from here, note the position. Form is very important in dealing with these box sets, because if you try to pick it up from the top, that happens and you have a disaster. But this is a wonderful set. You know, Dorati's Detroit recordings were really so well known, and they've been repackaged so many times that they've had a much bigger impact than the number really would suggest. There are only 18 CDs, and these are original jackets, original couplings. And, you know, since then they've been recoupled and stuff to be even less, or they've been spread out over other things. So really it's kind of amazing. Only 18 discs. And he was only actually in Detroit, according to the notes here, for 4 years, from 1977 to 1981. But the recordings were made as late as 1989 because he was conductor laureate and he came back. Really amazing. And they were recorded in a porn theater. Yes, in Detroit, because that was the only venue they could find that sounded good, which is really kind of fascinating. After which they went back to a renovated orchestra hall. But these are wonderful performances for the most part, by and large. Even where Dorati's in competition with himself, which isn't a lot of it, because the irony of doing these recordings is that, you know, Dorati made a lot of this repertoire originally for Mercury Living Presence. But Mercury Living Presence had not been reissued, even though it was eventually part of Universal. So he was competing with himself in the same label, only later. And here we have a lot of remakes. And, you know, some of them are better and some of them are not. But still, let's talk about it and we'll go through it. I have to just say, there's nothing bad here. You cannot go wrong with this set. And not only that, Dorati, who was, weaned by the illustrious Wilma Cozart Fine of Mercury Living Presence, really cared about what his recordings sounded like. He was one of the few conductors who really gave a damn about sound. So sonically, they started out analog and then it became some of the earliest digitals. They were some of the best sounding Decca digitals. They really were. They found a space. They made great sounding records there. Good stuff. So let's go through it and see what's on here. I don't even have to take the bookie thing out, but, let's do it anyway. Because they have a nice little track listing on the back. Sometimes it's better to have fewer recordings. If you wanted to do a complete Dorati Universal box, he made like 600 records. It would be, you'd have all the Haydn operas, all the Haydn symphonies. You'd have so much stuff. So, it would be fun. It would weigh about 5 trillion pounds and, it would cost a fortune, even at budgie prices. But, I think it's better to do it in bits. You can do a Royal Philharmonic box. You could do a Concertgebouw box. It could be really cool. All right, so we get a little booklet. And the booklet has very intelligent and interesting notes about his time in Detroit. And then we go through the discs one at a time. Are you ready? First, he started with Tchaikovsky. We always did wonderfully well. The 1812 Overture, Capriccio Italien, and the March Slav. Only 41 minutes and 50 seconds of music, but they are very good performances, very well recorded, exciting and brilliant, and what's not to love, okay? So that's Tchaikovsky. CD 2, Liszt. Oh, I love this disc. You've got the Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2, Dvorak's Slavonic Rhapsody No. 3, which is glorious, and which shows the influence of Berlioz on Dvorak, particularly the Corsair Overture. Listen to the big tune in Corsair, and you'll see exactly what I mean. Do 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 ba 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 da 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 da. And then there's the Dvorak, which is da 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 ba da ba 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 da ba 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 ba. They are really similar, strangely similar. And Dvorak knew his Berlioz; he played it anyway, under Smetana actually, but he played it. Okay, Enescu, Romanian Rhapsody No. 1, and the Ravel Rhapsody Espagnole. This is one of those discs, you just put it on and luxuriate in it. You don't have to think. It's just great tunes, wonderfully orchestrated, and terrific sound. It's irresistible. Let's see, what have we got? Number 3. Oh, this was fabulous. Bartok's Suite No. 1. I never heard this. This is Orchestral Suite number 1. It's a big work. It's like 40 minutes long. And then you get the 2 pictures, which were also total rarities. I mean, unless you had like the Hungariton Bartok edition, there were no Western recordings of these works until these came out. And I learned the works from this performance. I think a lot of us did. And it's wonderful that, Dorati always had such a wide repertoire, so much interest in doing unusual things. And that shows here. It really does. I mean, it's amazing that some of this stuff got made. I always look back on these recordings and say, gee whiz. I mean, the major labels must have been crazy. But what the heck? The first ever recording of the Egyptus Helen thing here. This is a gorgeous opera that makes no sense whatsoever. None. I wrote a book on Strauss. I talked about this opera. I still have no idea what happens. There's a giant omniscient clam that makes predictions in Act 1. It has one of the most beautiful arias that Strauss ever wrote, the opening of Act 2, Zweite Brautnacht. I mean, it's beyond gorgeous. It's like 4 last songs gorgeous. It really is. But what the hell is going on here? I have no clue. And this is a very good performance. You've got Gwyneth Jones and Barbara Hendricks and like some other people, Willard White and who's the other, major person here. Nobody cares. Okay. It's just very good. Beautifully done. He did some really good opera recordings. There was also a really good Flying Dutchman. Remember with Leonie Rieseneck as Senta? So, yeah, I mean, it's good. I mean, it's rare. It's unusual Strauss because it's Dorati. He always did the cool stuff. Then we've got more unusual Strauss. No, this is usual Strauss. This is Till Dawn Death. Don Juan, Till Eulenspiegel, Death and Transfiguration. And again, very fine performances, very well recorded. They didn't get a lot of credit when they came out because basically it was Dorati, and he was always regarded as kind of second string among, the big kahunas who got to do Strauss with like the Vienna Philharmonic, and this was Detroit. But, nobody did it better. I mean, they were as good as anybody, let's put it that way. And that's what Dorati found when he got to Detroit. He thought he was going to have to do a lot of work, but he said, no, they were always a very, very good orchestra. He just had to convince them that they were a very, very good orchestra. And he said, and wonderful things happened right away. So there you go. Stravinsky Petrushka. This is the best of his 3 Stravinsky remakes. It really is. It's a fabulous Petrushka. And what's interesting about it is that it's a mix of the 2 versions, 1911 and 1940, whatever. It says 1947 version. But the reality is that he made his own mixture of them, which he claims Stravinsky approved, because he knew Stravinsky quite well. And he was basically a ballet conductor. I mean, that's how he got his start as a conductor of the Ballet Russe de Monte Carlo. That's how he was trained. So he was always fabulous doing ballet music. Remember, he did those Tchaikovsky ballets on Mercury, Living Presence, and the Phillips remakes, and they're marvelous. He slowed down a little bit as he got older. Just a little, not a lot to be, painful about. But boy, is this a great Petrushka. And the sound was marvelous, absolutely marvelous. So that's wonderful to have. And then, this was an incredible novelty. Boy, oh boy. Szymanowski, Symphonies 2 and 3. 3 is the song of the night. Ooh, for chorus and tenor. Unbelievable. No one had heard these things. The second symphony is fascinating. It's, based on, one of those late Beethoven sonatas, the 2-movement one with the Arietta, whatever it is. Opus 111, 110, I can't do opus numbers. But it's a lot of works after that were based on that sonata, like Prokofiev's Second Symphony. That is a big sort of allegro thing, and then a big theme and variations finale. And this is one of those. And it's a wonderful work that never gets played. And the Third Symphony is one of his, super duper chromatic, luxurious, decadent, fin de siècle, orgasmic things. Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. And this was another thing where, who knew about this stuff when this recording was made? It was just such a brilliant, wonderful bit of unusual repertoire. I was so happy to see it. And here's another one. Dvorak, the Czech Suite, which is somewhat known, of course, but then all these short works that no one ever heard. The Prague waltzes, the Polonaise, the polka for the Prague students, and the Nocturne. I mean, it's just a lovely, lovely disc. He also remade the Slavonic dances, but that was with the Royal Phil. And it's also wonderful. And he did the American Suite. I mean, it's just great stuff. That was recoupled other ways as well. Then we've got Copeland. Oh, his Copeland was always terrific. Absolutely fabulous. And this is one of his first concerts, I think it was in Dallas, had El Sol in Mexico in it. He knew Copeland quite well. And boy, did he know this work. I mean, El Sol in Mexico, or if you want to say it, if you're American, is so hard to play. Oh my God. It does teach you how to count to 8 because it's just in 8. I mean, you have to 8 beats, eighth notes broken up all kinds of ways. 3 plus 2 plus 3, or 3 plus 3 plus 2, or 2 plus 3 plus 3, or, and every bar is different. And oh God, I remember when I played it, it was just a nightmare, but fun. So much fun. And Dorati really knew how to do it. And he did it a couple times. This is a fabulous performance. This is my favorite one, probably. Everybody always talked about how, Leonard Bernstein was the big Copeland guy, and he got all the credit for it. He did. But I like Dorati's performances as much, if not better. And boy, are these well recorded. And the Dance Symphony, which was a total novelty at the time this was released. I mean, we only had Copeland's own recordings of these things, which weren't very good. And we have the Fanfare for the Common Man, interesting, with not much tam-tam. And that's Dorati. He did not like his tam-tam to be too loud. And it starts out loud at the end. He has a huge tam-tam crescendo. So, yeah, it was deliberate. He keeps it fairly muted at the beginning, and it gets louder and louder as the work goes on, which works pretty well. I like it a little, pow, Bass drum's great, though. And the 4 dance episodes from Rodeo. And this is fantastic, particularly the final hoedown, because it's really danceable. You really get the rhythm. It's not just so fast. Some people just whip through it. It's so fast that you can't get the actual melodies and tunes and the rhythms in it. And it's such a fascinating work if you can hear the detail that Copeland builds into the music. So yeah, this is a great Copeland record. Oh my God. Okay, Rite of Spring. That's all that's here. 33 minutes and 31 seconds of it. His earlier one was, I think, Zippier. It was a little better. This one I have always found to be a little bit on the sluggish side, at least in the sacrificial dance, but it is wonderfully played and wonderfully recorded, as always. And so, it's just not my favorite Rite. There were so many good ones. And you had Shai and Cleveland going like insane in Decca Digital from about the same time, because major labels were insane and just recording the same stuff all over the place with everybody all the time. Strauss, Zarathustra, very good one. And Macbeth, which was a real rarity, again, at the time this was recorded. Sounds marvelous. The only competition was like Kempe with Staatskapelle Dresden, which is good, very good. And so's this, and very different sounding. And so that's great. Yeah, it's fun. Okay, more Stravinsky, the Firebird Complete. Well, Dorati's Complete Firebird on Mercury Living Presence is like the reference recording for Complete Firebirds, or one of them, and there's no way he was going to beat it, and he doesn't. It's a little bit slower, but it's not boring. It's not like deathly dull slow. It's just not as exciting as the London Symphony one on Mercury Living Presence, and that recording was one of the, Wilma Cozart Fine, spectacular, Robert Fine, amazing ones, with incredible detail and fidelity. This is good as it is. It just wasn't going to match it. But like I said, it's in the box, and you'll get it, and it's fine. I mean, you listen to it, it's very, very good. There's nothing wrong with it. Okay. Gershwin, Porgy and Bess Symphonic Picture of the Grand Canyon Suite. Come on, what's not to love? It's just delightful and tons of fun. Another Strauss. Oh, yeah. Dorati's own suite from Rosen Cavalier, which is absolutely marvelous, along with the Symphonic Fantasy from Die Frau und Schatten, which was, well, again, something you just never heard. A beautiful, brilliant new digital recording. He was a wonderful Strauss conductor. The Rosen Cavalier suite is great. I wish he'd made his own suite from Frau, because Strauss's arrangement's like the worst thing he ever did from one of his operas. Or he played Erich Leinsdorf's, which was also much better. Anyone's is much better, but it's good to have it. I mean, and it was great to hear it in such good sound, and it still is. So I can't really complain about that fact, but I just wish. Okay, Bartok, Miraculous Mandarin, and the music for strings, percussion, and Celesta. Well, the music for strings, percussion, and Celesta here is better than his first one on Mercury, and it's a very good performance. It really is. Again, I always found his Bartok to be a little bit measured. I know he was supposed to be like a Bartok expert, but, the Miraculous Mandarin, it could be more exciting. It really could, but it's marvelously recorded, marvelously played. It's the complete ballet, which was extremely unusual at the time. Since then, there have been like a billion of them, but there weren't so many complete ones. And, for the MSPC, this is worth hearing. It really is. I was very, very happy. It was making this crinkly sound. Wait a minute. You got to be careful. Sometimes you think like, the glue got from these cardboard things got onto the discs, but no, it's perfect. No problem. No problem. See, I have all these as singles, so I didn't have to listen to these all over again. I mean, I just spot checked it, frankly, because I've got them all sitting around here and they're original incarnations. So when I want to hear one of them, frankly, I go to the individual disc. But now I can't find anything. So this is great. Now I can go to the box. I'll be very, very happy to have that. Let's see what else we got here. Stravinsky Symphony No. 1, which was very unusual. Wonderful performance of that. And the Scherzo Fantastique. I keep saying the same thing. Very unusual, not heard, new, fresh, exciting. That's why we all got these. Because you finally had a major label doing this unusual repertoire, which was very hard to find. And the performances weren't first class, and they needed to be. It's one of the things, it's wonderful to have unusual repertoire done by unknown art conductors and, second-rate orchestras. But what you really want, ideally, of course, is to make the best possible case, especially if it's unusual repertoire. It should be played like the greatest thing in the world by the greatest artists in the world, because that's what's going to sell it to people who don't know it. Rather than, a merely decent performance that sort of lets you know what it sounds like. We put up with a lot of that in this business. And we understand that that's what's going to be, that there's a limit to what we can really expect. But these recordings are first-class performances of the unusual stuff. And that made a huge difference, to me anyway. And I'm sure it did to a lot of you too. Last but not least, Copeland, Appalachian Spring. This is his last recording in Detroit. And Stravinsky's Appalachian Musagette, which this is my reference recording. It's also my reference for the Appalachian Spring Suite. This is one of the most beautiful, luminous, gorgeous recordings I ever heard in my life. The performances are just perfect. Absolutely perfect. Danceable, buoyant rhythmically, but so affecting and just it was a wonderful, wonderful moment when they made this recording. The notes say that too. But what's nice about it is that I didn't have to read it in the notes for me to know that. The first time I heard that, I just said, wow, this is it. Especially for Apollo or Appalachian Musagette, whatever you want to call it. That's a work that has, it's a difficult piece because it's very monochromatic. It's just all strings and very stylized. And it can sound like glue, as for example, when Herbert von Karajan conducts it. Ugh. But this is what the piece should sound like. It's just amazingly refreshing. And so's Appalachian Spring. Come on. It's a stunning performance. Gorgeously recorded. This is one of the great records of anything, in my opinion. It really is. It's absolutely astoundingly wonderful. And so it's wonderful to have it back because the Appalachian Spring was mixed with other Copeland stuff. And the Stravinsky, God knows what happened to that. And, it all got, mixed and redone and regurgitated various ways. So I am absolutely thrilled, let me put this stuff away, to have this box available. And 18 discs of first-rate music making for the most part. Never less than, there we go. Never less than very, very good. And sometimes just astounding. It's a great deal. This is one of those collector's editions everybody should have. And because it's only 18 CDs, you may actually listen to it. There's an opportunity here. I say only 18 CDs, but that's a legacy. This is a legacy. If this is all there was, it's like Cankrazan's evil god of classical music who wants to destroy everything but one. Save this box. This counts as one. This is a legacy. And a wonderful, wonderful one at that. So I recommend it very strongly. Get it while you can. Decca didn't screw it up, as far as I can tell. It's really nice. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.